After the events of World War II, Communist China began to experiment with its population and agriculture, resulting in many deaths. However, some have argued about the death toll for years. Some say it was a little over 18 million, but after extensively looking through files about the genocide after they were opened in 2006, Frank Dick Otter found it was about 45 million. Centuries before many European and Asian countries had already industrialized, and China was on the back foot. When the Communist Party of China took over, they were trying to come up with ideas on how to industrialize. A radical function of the party, including the Chinese Communist leader Mao Zedong, thought the best way to do this was to take control of agriculture. This would allow the state to buy at a low price and sell much higher, thus raising the capital necessary for the industrialization of the country. No more private property, and all households belonged to the state. The government would make more people join farming collectives and move them into communes. Here they would be starved, have no personal belongings, and they would be strictly monitored. Mao Zedong wouldn't trust any intellectuals and would just make up his own rules for making products. As more and more backyard furnaces were established all over China, they would be producing lumps of iron. Only after their meeting with Soviet officials did he find out everything being made in his country was of no value. The peasants during this time were treated terribly. People could be punished in the most terrible ways for doing simple things. For example, stealing a potato would result in you being tied up and thrown into a pond. Parents would have to bury the children alive and would have to work naked in the winter. The communes began to fail, and the plan to develop China's economy with all these get-rich-quick schemes, including backyard furnaces, irrigation, and experimental crops, led to the starvation and malnourishment of the Chinese people. From 1959 to 1962, about 20 million Chinese people died due to starvation. After all of this disaster, China came to the senses and repealed the Great Leap Forward program. Private property was returned to the peasants, and they could farm how they wanted to. After this, the party began to break up and divide. The Holocaust occurred on January 30th, 1933 to May 8th, 1945. The Holocaust was the systematic killings of Jews, Gypsies, disabled people, Poles, Russians, Slavic people, communists, socialists, Jehovah's Witnesses, homosexuals, and blacks. Adolf Hitler was the main factor and leader behind the Holocaust. He blamed inferior people, mostly Jews, for every economic and social problem in the country, even accusing them of profiting off the Germans during the First World War. To the state of Nazi Germany, its people, and the leader, the Jews were the main enemy of the state, and to them needed to be deported and exterminated immediately. Hitler convinced many, including the country of Italy, that Jews and other inferior races needed to be wiped out in order to save their race and country. Adolf Hitler at first stripped the rights of all Jews and other inferiors in order for them to be lesser than humans and become the same level or even lower than wild rabid animals. He would then segregate them from the master race, Aryans, and move such inferiors to ghettos in order to quickly rid and separate them from society. For a majority of the early Holocaust, Jews and other inferiors were sent to concentration camps to be worked to death. Not until later years were extermination camps equipped with gas chambers where the mass numbers of victims were killed. Many countries knew of the Holocaust but did nothing until the very late years of the war. Even then were the Nazis killing thousands with death marches and still running gas chambers. When liberated, the Jews and others were looking as if they were bone with skin barely hanging onto their skin. Jews were treated and killed inhumanely. Those who survived still bear the scars.
The Great Leap Forward and the Holocaust both started because both leaders wanted to fix their economy. As after World War I, Germany surrendered and was forced to accept the demands of the Treaty of Versailles. This meant giving back many pieces of land, paying $6.6 billion as reparations, and having an extremely weak military. This made Germans mad, and they wanted to restore their country since it was extremely weak. Along would come Hitler to start the Holocaust so he could make Germany the strongest nation in the world. Mao Zedong wanted to industrialize it because of how weak it was considered. So as Adolf Hitler did, he killed millions of people to try and make his country stronger and industrialize. Another thing that these two genocides have in common is horrible / inhumane conditions and inadequate to no food. In the communes, the peasants were barely fed and slept 4 hours a day, then worked for 16 hours straight. The conditions were nasty as many were shoved into these communes and nobody really managed them well. Some differences between the two genocides, the Holocaust and the Great Leap Forward, are the governments. Hitler's idea of a great government was fascism, and he absolutely despised communism, at one point double-crossing the USSR in an attempt to destroy communism. Mao Zedong's perfect idea was a communist government. Another difference is Hitler purposely targeted the Jews, while Mao Zedong didn't target anyone. Hitler's main goal was to kill all the Jews and make the country stronger and pure, while Mao Zedong's main goal was to industrialize. He knew it would cost some lives, but it wasn't his main focus to kill.